to you all, and welcome to another episode of Wear Many Hats. My name's Rachel, and this is the podcast totally dedicated to the FM and workplace industry. Today, we have a wonderful guest with us. We have Helen Holland. She is the Assistant Director of Estate Planning and Strategic Projects at the University of Kent. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
That's a mouthful, that title.
Yes, it is. It's got longer and longer, I think.
Yeah, it's added to it. But have you come from far today?
So I live in a small village just outside of Dover.
Lovely.
It's been a nice coastal journey up past the sea to get here. But
lovely.
Not too bad.
And I mentioned to you before, I used to live in Herne and Canterbury, and that's where you're based, isn't it? So
yes, the University of Kent has a campus at Canterbury and another one at Medway, but I'm based on the Canterbury campus.
Lovely place to work, I bet.
Oh yeah, very green park.
Yeah, I love Canterbury. So let's rewind a bit. Where did it all start for you? You can go back as far as you like.
So I went to university.
Yeah.
I studied politics and international relations. I didn't actually go there to study that. I started studying something else, but part of my degree was politics. And so I changed to doing that in my second year.
Okay.
And that was mainly because my dad always said, just go and do what interests you. Don't worry about what the degree is in. Just do what interests you. So I did that. And I came out of there and then thought, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And my dad was doing marketing. So I just kind of assumed that I would go into that. Yeah. That was the plan.
Like following your parents' footsteps.
Yeah. And also my dad had worked for lots of in the travel industry. So when we were younger, he used to obviously get his salary, but his bonus was we went on a holiday every year on the company, like Thompson Holidays.
Which was attractive.
Yeah. So in my mind, I thought, well, that sounds like a good plan. I'll go and do that. So yes, after doing a brief stint as doing reservations for P&O just to earn some money after university.
Yeah.
I then got a job at the Promise Recovery Centre, which was based in London and also in Kent. And that was a private addiction clinic, sort of similar to the Priory.
Okay.
That type of place.
Yeah.
And I went there to do marketing. And it was a interesting place to work. There was lots of interesting characters, but it was also rather bonkers.
Yes.
With a lot of crazy things. We had a patient who got quite cross and had the managing director up by his tie outside.
Oh my goodness.
We had to lock ourselves in the office. So, not kind of
very unpredictable.
normal place at all. We were trying to, particularly at that time, it was a marketing role, and we were, the managing director had created like a seminar about addiction in the workplace.
Right.
And he wanted us to basically get people to come along to that and
support and have more awareness around it.
More awareness.
Which is a great thing.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is a great thing. And, I learned so much from that, the help from an empathy perspective in terms of people who suffer from addiction.
Communication skills.
And I noticed as part of this, so I was doing the marketing part, but I noticed there were some issues with some of the stuff from a customer service perspective. And so I went to the managing director and made some suggestions of changes and sort of ended up becoming his executive assistant.
Right.
And sort of running a whole load of things. I ended up even doing a class with some of the patients who were due to leave, but were maybe younger patients on how to use the internet and things like that. Although sometimes some of the things they wanted to look up were a little bit dodgy, and I was a bit kind of like, okay.
So really different from you.
Somebody wanted to look up piercings, and I thought, oh my God, this is going. But it was also tough because there were some things there that were really tricky to do and traumatic to deal with, because you saw everything, and we were quite a small staff team. All the counsellors were ex-addicts themselves, and so therefore had a really good understanding. But there's a lot of people who've been through a lot of pain and trauma, so it was a very complicated place to be.
So not corporate, not so
No,
totally
definitely.
different from what you've been used to.
Yeah, definitely. It got to a point where I just thought, I don't think I can cope with this. I mean, but nowadays, I would say I think it was beginning to affect my mental health. At the time, where I wouldn't have even really considered that. I just thought this is all a bit too much. We weren't talking about mental health in the same way.
No.
So I applied to loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of jobs in London.
Yeah.
And that was my goal, to come to London because I had friends living in London. That was, again, not really looking for jobs that kind of had some of the skills that you've done. I did. And I got interviewed and was offered a job with Move Plan.
Yep.
Which is a move.
I know them.
Company. And that at the time was based near Albert Bridge.
Okay. So I know it.
When they first started. And I was taken on as a project coordinator there.
Brilliant.
And started working on some projects. So Move Plan's USP is moving people with minimum downtime.
Yeah.
And I know you've had a previous
we have
plan. It was a great environment. There was lots of people my age at that time, in my 20s. We would have a great day at work and then go to the bar, which was brilliant in my 20s. And
that's what you want.
I did some interesting projects. We did some work for Accenture, some microsystems. I'm trying to think of the ones. This is really far back.
To spark your memory.
Yeah, so it was quite, lots of different ones. And I was working with some other great people. And actually, as a company, it was very female dominated, which is quite interesting, again, considering the rest of the industry was quite male dominated, particularly because we worked a lot with construction companies.
Right, yeah.
And the other thing with Move Plan is that, a lot of people, when they do moves or companies think, I'm going to move, they bring people to manage their move in at the end, whereas Move Plan like to get in much earlier, like when construction was happening, because we would be pointing out to people how they needed to consider everything in the whole life cycle of that project and how that building works.
Yes.
And make sure that when people do come in, they can go and get a cup of coffee and there's milk available, because actually those little things are far more important than a lot of the other.
I keep hearing this in workplaces, the coffee, if it's not right.
Yeah,
you're going to have some angry campers.
So living in London, working for Move for about 7 months, and then they had a project come up for Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, and it was back down in Sandwich, which is not far from where.
So you had to go back.
Yeah. So they said to me, could you go along to do this project? Because you've got family down there, so you won't feel so isolated. So I went there with another colleague of mine, Megan. Megan was the project manager. I was the project coordinator there.
Brilliant.
And that was when they opened up 3 new buildings in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And we designed a move program for offices and labs, which was 26 weekends continuously because there was so much to move.
Yeah.
And everybody moved on the office side with no downtime at all. So they went home on Friday at 5, came in on Monday, 9 o'clock, everything was up running and working. The lab part of it was obviously slightly more complicated and there was more time lag, but that was where I really learned how to move labs, how to do that successfully to minimize the downtime. So they literally had maybe 2 days before the move and 2 days after the move, and that was it. And on the back of that, we won absolutely loads of ongoing work projects. And Megan came back to London, and I became the person who was down there.
So that was your promotion?
And I got promoted from project coordinator to project manager.
That's what you like.
Mainly because I kept working on these projects, kept winning some more business, had really good relationship with all the staff there. I also met my husband there.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So he didn't work for Pfizer. He worked for EC Harris at the time.
Okay.
So he was based there. Yes, it was.
So your whole life literally came alive there at Move Plan, really.
Yeah, definitely, and
put you on the path.
Well, the projects kept coming towards the end, and I kept thinking I was going to have to move back to London, and then they'd say, "Oh, actually, could you do this other project? Do this, and the next one." So it would carry on. So I never actually came back to London at all from a living perspective.
Yeah, of course.
And then in 2004, we were asked whether, from a movement perspective, whether we would tender for a global contract. Now, in Pfizer terms, global was 4 sites in the US and the one in the UK.
Yeah.
That was global. And that was on the back of the last project we'd just done, Building 530 there.
Yeah.
Which was for pharmaceutical sciences. And in that project, we actually managed to move labs with zero downtime by buying some equipment to set some up so that people could move into a lab with new equipment. We'd then move the old equipment to the next people. So there was a continuous cycle.
Pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, having to get everything up and running all the time because
no
the amount of science, amount research costs and all the different elements of it. I've got loads of stories of things that happened there that are really, were really interesting. I had to move the HIV virus from generated vehicles. So and that things like that where it was really high pressure because
very different. Yeah,
very different because things could that could have been a disaster. We moved it we had to move sample to another place nearby, and the generator failed on the vehicle, and we couldn't leave until that was repaired because we had to run cables out to keep that at the right temperature.
My goodness.
Moved counterfeit drugs because there was a counterfeit drug area where they were testing all of them.
So you're passed in the rehabilitation centre. Paid off a bit.
So anyway, back to the global contract. So we were asked to tender for this global contract for 4 sites within research and development and the one in the UK. I was out, so we'd filled in all the tender stuff. I was out visiting my sister because my sister and her partner were living in LA at the time.
Okay, nice.
And I had a phone call saying we've been asked to go to do a presentation and a site visit. It was at that time in Connecticut. So
nice.
We were thinking that we would rather you come back, buy a suit, fly there.
Yeah.
And then they said, actually, no, we can't do that because the team in Pfizer and Sandwich want you back for lessons learned meeting. So I flew back for 24 hours for a lessons learned meeting.
Oh, my goodness.
And then flew back via Boston. I got to Boston to immigration and I'd written Boston, Connecticut, I think, on my visa form because I was so tired.
Oh, no.
And they started questioning me and I was like, I'm just tired. I'm really sorry. Not trying to get in illegally.
That's a long stint.
Yeah. And anyway, so we won. All the other companies were American, so we won that contract.
That's so good.
Yeah. And then we had a really short time frame because MovePlan didn't actually have a US entity.
Right.
So we had to set up the company. So Suki Riley, managing director, and I worked on that together with all the solicitors, how we could do this.
Yeah.
Having to understand the different HR laws and also because we were operating in different states.
Very different, isn't it, from the UK?
And each state had different differences.
Yes. Yeah.
So we had to work all that out, your paid time off as opposed to annual leave and sick leave and things like that. So really complicated. And then we had to recruit all the staff. So I went out and did recruitment in 3 of the sites. I think Suki did 1 of them. And recruited all the staff.
Gosh.
And then when the contract started, we had a 2-week training period. So we took them all to Ann Arbor, just outside Detroit, which is where I was going to be based for a year. It was meant to be. And we trained them all.
Gosh.
There.
That's a big project. So you're covering everything, aren't you?
Massive
Even
project.
stuff that you may not know. You still have to.
Yeah, so it was all moves and changes for all of these sites. Yeah, as you say, loads of different things. So it was Connecticut, Michigan, St. Louis in Missouri, and also La Jolla.
Wow.
Down in California.
I know it. I've been there.
Yes.
It's very nice.
So, and what we had the opportunity. I could have gone and moved there. But it was really tricky. My husband has a daughter from a previous relationship, And
So it just doesn't
we
suit.
couldn't have done it. So what we so Suki moved out there, and another lady called Jules, she moved out there to Connecticut, and I was going out there for a year, and I was going to look after Michigan, so the 2 sites in Michigan and St. Louis.
Wow.
And so after we did the training, that's what we did. There was a slight fly in the ointment because I was meant to be there for a year from the day they started. But just before the training, I realised I was pregnant.
It's the only thing with women, isn't it? We
Yeah.
can never quite plan things the way that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I had been planning it, and then I'd stopped planning it, and then it happens.
That's what happens, isn't it? Wow.
So I
You had to come back.
Well, so I carried on out there.
Oh, okay.
I went out there. I was out there for about 6-7 months until I was no longer able to fly without a doctor's note.
Right.
Then I came back.
Yeah.
We that was really interesting. It was so different working out in the States.
Yes, I can imagine.
And then I came back and headed up the sandwich site. And Jane Arthur, who another person who I've worked with, who now works at University College London, she took over from me. So she'd been looking after Sandwich while I'd been away. So I came back to Sandwich to look after that site, and she went out and took my place.
Oh wow! You did a swap.
Yeah,
job swap.
And then I was at Pfizer in Sandwich for a good couple more years. Working for MovePlan.
You worked with them for a long time, MovePlan, didn't you?
Yeah.
15?
Yeah.
15, almost 15 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. It's incredible.
There was obviously a period of time in that 15 years where I did work for Jones Lang LaSalle because Pfizer had decided to outsource all of their FM.
So you did a contract.
Yeah. So, and for like the first 6 months, maybe a year, our contract, MovePlan's contract was direct with Pfizer. And then Jones Lang LaSalle decided they were going to take the move management in-house.
Okay.
And at the time, I had just had my second baby, or just come back from having my second baby. And I didn't really want to commute to London because the high speed didn't exist then. So it would have been a nightmare.
Long journey and with a young family. It's really hard.
Yeah. So so I worked there for Jones Lang LaSalle. So carrying on doing the same sort of thing.
Of course. Yeah, I can see you've done projects pretty much the whole time and throughout your career, really, apart from your stint at the rehabilitation place.
Yes.
You've pretty much been on a path, which brings you up to now, obviously, where you are. And you've been there for, like I say, almost 12 years.
Yeah.
At University of Kent.
Yeah, definitely. So after the Jones Lang LaSalle bit, I went back to MovePlan.
Yeah.
I did a lot of really exciting projects there because of, also spent a long time with just Pfizer, but then all of a sudden I was working with lots of different
projects. That's nice too.
Which was really nice.
Lots of exposure.
Yeah, Montague Evans.
Oh, lovely.
RBS, Coots.
Wow.
And yeah, some really good clients. And then was doing some new business for MovePlan because the London director had gone to do a project in India. So there was a bit of a gap for new business. So I was having to do some business development and going to networking events. And I spotted there was one in Canterbury. And I was like,
going there.
I'll go to this one in Canterbury because it's close to home. And when I went there, the director of estates at the time, Peter Chanovsky, from the University of Kent, was one of the people giving a talk there.
Oh, it's like your life's all pathed out, isn't it?
And he used to work at Pfizer, so I knew him from Pfizer, which was so...
What a small world.
Yeah, really. East Kent is like that. Everyone's connected somehow.
Yeah.
But yes, so bizarre. And I got talking to him afterwards, and he was saying, I want you to come in and talk to our team about what you do from a MovePlan perspective. He said, but we're also thinking about maybe having a role like this. And I sort of arranged to go in and see him with my MovePlan hat on. And then I happened to be sort of looking, and I was thinking, maybe there'll be, I'd have a look at this role if it ever came up. And then I looked on the website, and it wasn't actually a role that was exactly the same as mine. It was head of space management.
Okay.
And I looked at it and I thought, in a typical fashion, which I don't want to make it so generalist, but people always say women tend to want to try and meet all of the criteria.
Yeah.
Rather than...
That's correct. Yes.
And so initially I thought, I'm not 100% sure. So I sort of thought, no, maybe I won't. And then I was with my mom and my sister and my sister's husband for dinner on I think it was a Saturday evening, and they were like, just do it.
Go for it.
Just go for it. So at like 2 minutes before the deadline, 10 o'clock at night, I sent my CV.
Well done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where would you be now?
Exactly. It was just one of those things. And I think definitely since then, and it's advice I've given to other people, is you don't have to make the decision at the time of applying.
No.
You can make the decision if they offer you the job.
Correct. Yeah.
And that was definitely
the right move.
Right move. And yes, I went to work at the University of Kent, and that's been really interesting because it has been quite different. Because although my area, when I was working with MovePlan, we weren't necessarily directly influencing space and furniture and interior.
The time
it was something that we were part of, and I'd been to so many different workplaces in London and across the country. I had a very good idea of it, and it was useful coming in from having a different background.
Yeah,
because of people often stay a long time in universities, and now I am one of them. But and so there's sometimes can be sort of a mindset of, we've always done this way. And coming in from having had so much exposure in the corporate sector, I was looking at workplace design and thinking, why are we doing this? This is completely so
you've got fresh different eyes almost on projects.
I would say I felt that going into the university sector, that workplace design was back in the early 90s compared to where this was in 2015. I felt like it was a really, really far away from what was the corporate sector were doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting starting to meet all the academic schools and the professional service departments, and then having to understand the balance between workplace design, student experience, academic needs.
Yeah, it's totally different, really.
Yeah, and the fact that sometimes in some of the spaces, for example, teaching spaces, they might have dual purposes because they might be used for teaching, but then as soon as there's no teaching, it's used for conferencing, so you have to consider different aspects of what they might be used for.
Of course.
And obviously you've got students are there when it's term time 24/7.
Yes.
So yeah, very complicated. And I did bring in some of my MovePlan experience because we were opening a building called Sibson, which was a REBA award-winning building for our business school and maths at the time who were in there. And Peter Czernovsky, the director of estates at the time, and I discussed that I wanted it to run like a MovePlan project.
Nice.
And we did that.
Brilliant.
And they moved in over a weekend, which I don't think anybody had done at the university. And they were all really shocked. They didn't think it was going to work.
It's possible.
And we did as we've always done. We did a help desk on the day after, and the only thing that we had that was a problem was an academic who came to us with a keyboard not working.
Which isn't actually part of your...
And actually the only reason it wasn't working was there was a paperclip stuck in it. So it was a really, really good success. And I think that sort of changed as people thinking it in a different way. It had been very much like the project team delivered the project, the academic school or professional service department chose the furniture. They then booked their own moves, and we changed all of that. So all of that came into my department.
So you changed the way it worked.
Yeah, we changed the way it worked, and we standardized a lot of things. And then 2 years after that, brought in a space and workplace manager.
Wow. Okay.
And from there, I mean, that's grown. She's now the head of space and interior design, and we have developed this department. So for, furniture ordering as well was not within my team; that was within a different team within estates. And signage. So we brought all that in. So now everything about like moving or changing your workplace all sits within my team.
I love that. So, I mean, we covered quite a bit there, but you didn't always know you were going to end up on this path, did you? You did try a couple of things, obviously wanting to go into travel or marketing because that's what Dad had done, moving into your rehabilitation centre, and then, but you've ended up on this path, I guess, because you went into a role more corporate, wasn't it? That's what, and it sort of started from there, didn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
At Move Plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Went in there from being in a corporate, and I definitely think it gave a good insight. The corporate world moves so much faster than universities do. Universities move very slowly. It was a big learning curve also, because any projects I had done at universities in my Move Plan days had already been approved.
Right.
So therefore, there wasn't a hold up. Whereas going into university, it takes quite a long time to get a project. I mean, I had to go through 4 different governance boards to get a project that's over £2 million approved.
Yeah. What still now? Yeah. Okay.
It's
very different.
It's very different. And my role's expanded because it was just the space side. It now covers property, projects. And I've taken over, after the last director of estates, the director level responsibility for those projects as well.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? Your journey. But it stayed very much on the path, which is brilliant. So who or what gave you that real push in your career? I'm assuming that's probably from Move Plan, I would have thought, just looking at your background there.
Yeah, I would say Move Plan was probably the biggest area, because I learned so much, met so many different clients. Also there was a managing director at way back, and I remember somebody being, I think, given a promotion or some kind of recognition, and I said to him, "But I've done all these things," and he said to me, "But how do we know?"
Huh.
And it really made me realize how I needed to self-promote.
Yes.
And I think that that's something I've taken in, and going out to America and seeing how the Americans are much more able to promote themselves without being awkward Brits as we are. I think that really gave me the push, and always to look then, okay, well, what can I do? I seeing an opportunity and thinking, well, can I do that?
Yeah, because sometimes in our job titles, it means, we've done that, but there's so much more to what we've done or covered underneath that we don't, that's not part of that role, but it can be. It's everywhere. Every company is different, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and in the university, I think what's interesting about my role, and also Sophie, the head of space management and interior design, is that space actually comes into so many different things.
Yeah.
And so we end up actually becoming involved in a lot of things that aren't really related to what we do.
That's what I'm saying.
But because people don't know who to go to.
Yeah.
And so therefore we end up having to be the connector. So whereas there are people in my department who maybe work more internally in the department, we work much more cross-institutionally.
Right. Okay. So what does a day in your world look like at the moment then, now in your latest role?
My latest role. So at the moment, we are working very much on the merger with University of Greenwich.
Yeah.
So University of Kent and University of Greenwich exchanged in February actually, and are aiming to complete a merger by the end of July. So I've spent several months working on the due diligence and leading on the estate's due diligence. And now we are working on what that day one looks like, because merging 2 organizations. So a little bit similar, like when you move a business, you don't want to move somewhere and then, I don't know, somebody's forgotten to set up your credit card facilities. You can't pay for something. So that's very big focus. I'm also working on sort of tidying up. We moved to a new CAFM system.
Okay.
And there's been some, I won't say teething problems, but it's not really teething problems with the CAFM system. It's more just we need to change some of our processes and procedures to make it work better. So looking at that. And also then thinking about how do we look at our capital budgets. I've sort of ended up taking on looking at the long-term maintenance aspects of the
estate.
So although maintenance doesn't sit in my team, from a project perspective, I'm looking at all the projects that need to be done and how we will fit those within the budget envelopes we've got going forward. And then there'll be things like, I don't know, a school wants to move spaces. And although Sophie deals with a lot of the operational aspects of that, we will talk about it. And we've got some buildings where there's less people in. So we're looking at, what are we going to do about those going forward? How might we move people around? We've got a school maybe that's not in a most optimum place, and they attract quite a lot of students. So we're looking at, okay, it might be 2 years down the line, but where would we move them, and what are all the steps we've got to take to be able to get them in the right
incredible,
place?
really. All these things that go on that we have absolutely no idea go on, really.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just so many other aspects of it. I noticed that no one was looking after external space. Obviously, we have a landscaping and grounds team who are brilliant, but in terms of it as a space.
Yes.
So
what could we use this for?
Yeah. So and it was just lots of people were doing bits and pieces, but nobody was owning it. So that came into my remit, and we look after that now. And,
wearing many hats then.
Wearing many hats. And also from, a sustainability perspective, how can we ensure everything we're doing is sustainable?
Yeah.
What's the best operation we can do?
We'll come on to that. But let's talk challenges. So what's testing you right now? I mean, it sounds like all of that.
What's testing is not having enough hours in the day to fit all the meetings in and actually do the work. And that's tricky. The university has been in a massive amount of change since 2019.
Right.
We've done 3 restructures. We've lost so many assistant directors. So now our senior team, there's 3 of us.
Oh gosh.
So we take on, we do a hell of a lot and have to cover a lot. And that's a challenge. And it's a challenge all through the department, all through the organisation. How do we keep the show on the road and do more with less? But it's also been interesting because we've done some fantastic projects by doing some very small changes. And I shouldn't reveal the secret, but like one of them is psychology department wanted to improve where they were. We didn't really have the budget with everything else that was going on to make completely refurbish the space. So I contacted the Open Day team to find out what route they take the applicants on. And then we've refurbished all the corridors. Not the rooms behind. But it gives the impression of a much brighter, cleaner space.
I love that.
We're now going back this summer to do the behind the doors.
It in stages.
But it was, so we've had to be quite creative with some of the things we're doing. And in my team, we also look after Warpit. I don't know whether you've heard of that scheme. So Warpit is a furniture mainly furniture recycling scheme. So
love that.
You have a site so you can internally advertise things for different departments and teams can ask for them. And then if we don't get any takers, then we can donate them to charity.
Brilliant.
But it's all tracked through that, and we are number 1 in the country.
Oh, well, that's so good. Everybody else needs to get on board with that.
But it's been really good. So we've done a lot of that. So we haven't actually bought that much new.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Bit of an upcycling person. I love seeing that.
Yeah, definitely. And if it's not the right colours, we'll get it reupholstered.
Exactly.
And move it.
And
somewhere.
it's about reusing and not buying the new all the time. And I think it's a lot of waste, isn't there?
There is a lot of waste, but I think it's great that a lot of it goes to. So there's a lot of schools we donate to. Scout group.
Gosh, there's so many places that need stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, we've had to clear some of the student accommodation. There was some that was taken out of use. So all of the furniture from that went to Porchlight.
Brilliant. I love that. So you've got a lot going on at the moment, but where is heading and what excites you? And, this is usually where we speak about sort of AI, ESG, remote working, tech, all of that sort of stuff. What excites you about your sector in particular?
I think what's exciting is that everyone's having to think differently. They've had a long time of thinking the same and doing things the same and having enough money to have more space. So I think that will be that is going to be a continuing change. Some universities have moved further forward in that. So for example, when I started at the university, so there's a group called the Higher Education Space Management Group. And everyone there was sharing their space standards, and it was all like, if you're a professor, you get 15 square meters.
Okay.
So very sort of kind of hierarchical.
Yeah.
And that that is being challenged. I mean, in our university, we have a policy that's entitled to a shared space. Well, it's not very much adhered to because we actually have more space perhaps than we need.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of change in that. I think there's a lot more having to be even more competitive. It's so hard with the student market, with the issues that there have been with visas and the reduction in international students. But I still think there is a place for universities, and I think that it's exciting. I think the merger with Greenwich is exciting. I think that's going to be really interesting. University of Kent and University of Greenwich will still operate as two separate academic brands, but it will be interesting what we can do and from
as a group.
As a group, and perhaps from some of the back office elements of how we can think differently. We have a shared campus actually at Medway, and I think that will be really interesting because I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Up until now it's been, these are the Greenwich buildings, these are the shared ones, and this is the Kent one, and we can say, we're all together up. We can still have our brands, but we can have a look at how we do things. So I think there's
a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah. AI, you mentioned that. I mean, there's a lot to do with AI that could be really helpful. I think I know within my colleagues are sort of looking at how we use AI within the higher education arena safely without also compromising on a GDPR perspective from if you're a staff, but also from a student perspective, how it is not used inappropriately.
Or in the wrong way. Yeah, absolutely. So are you using AI at the moment in anything you do? I think it speeds things up, doesn't it, a little bit?
Sometimes. I think it's just it's been slightly complicated as in what tools. So the university is shortly going to be having dedicated AI.
Okay.
There is access to Copilot, but they're looking at other access, and I think that would be really helpful because at the moment I think there is some people aren't aware of the negative side maybe of putting things in. I mean, if I do use it sometimes, but obviously I take out anything that is potentially attributable to somebody, so I change everything and then put everything back in if I need to. It couldn't be picked up because of, I think there's just a lot of
the unknown a little bit on it.
It can be used. It can really be
certain
useful.
Things. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I know the director of IT was saying, he'd used, I think it was on Copilot, created a terms of reference for a meeting in 2 seconds.
That's it.
And those sorts of things, I think it's really good.
It is incredible tool.
And also if we can get the transcript part in Teams or other such types of communication really good, then that will be helpful. It's not always helpful at the moment. I mean, some of the things that apparently I've said in Teams meetings are really dodgy, and you go, I definitely didn't say. I certainly told somebody I loved them, and I was thinking, I don't do that.
Definitely not in a meeting. Oh dear. Yeah. You've got to be really careful what you put in, or what comes out. You have to double check it. That's for sure. So you mentioned a little bit about sustainability and ESG is obviously a big word at the moment. What does it really mean to you in your work at the moment?
We, as a university, are very conscious of sustainability. We have a sustainability steering group.
That's good.
And that covers, there's lots of different work streams under it because it's not just how do we bring sustainability in terms of like from an estates maintenance background, but also from
the whole,
for the university, how can you make sure sustainability is embedded in the curriculum? From my perspective, because it has to be across everything, not just on like an environmental science degree. How can it be on everything? From my area, myself and one of the assistant directors, we chair sustainability campus operations group. We have a partnership with Siemens looking at how we can move more to net zero. And we have some, quite clear net zero goals. We also have a massive amount of biodiversity on the Canterbury campus. And we have a very active working group on there. And, it's something that is very important because the Canterbury campus is so green and we want to keep that sort of garden
nice
feeling.
Yeah, I love that. And Do you think the industry is innovating fast enough, or do you think you're still playing catch up?
I wouldn't necessarily say the higher education sector is innovating fast enough in terms of, actually, if I'm speaking specifically about workplace design, I would say not.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult because of there is, still prevalent throughout the industry, this feeling that academics need their own offices.
Right.
And that's not particularly space efficient.
Yeah, I see what you said. Yeah.
And it's also, we've done, in the university, we've done lots of studies on space utilization. So in pre-COVID, we were looking at 19% utilization of academic offices. 19% is terrible.
Yeah.
So it's a massive period of change, and I think there's going to have to be a lot more asked but it's also difficult because we own majority of our property, particularly at Canterbury. We own all the property there, so it's not like we can use the excuse of we're paying rent, so we need to get rid of this building. So it's looking at the environmental impact of that building, the cost of maintaining it, the cost of cleaning it, and things like that. So there's going to be a lot more going that way, and particularly with using more of those environmental drivers.
Yes. That's a lot to do. So looking back, I mean, you've done a lot of projects, so that's what you do. But what moment or project are you still very proud of today?
I think the projects I did for RBS and Coots, so they ran one into the other because obviously they're all part of the same group.
Yeah.
With RBS, I moved them from 7 locations in London down to 2.
Wow.
And that was really interesting. And then following on from that was Coots. So Coots did a full refurbishment, and that was quite a lot of strategic thinking about how can we keep this building operational for these very high-profile clients.
Yeah.
And shut areas off so they can be refurbished at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It was kind of a mad jigsaw puzzle. So it was a really good one, and met some lovely people there who I'm still in touch with.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was. They were both really good projects, and that was the last project that I did before I went to the university, and I had a lovely letter from the chairman of Coots thanking me for everything I'd done. So.
Wow. So then that really does show. That was one of your best projects. And so what's something you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
I think that it doesn't matter if you don't know what you want to do. I think there is a lot of pressure. So a lot of pressure to know what you want, what you should do. And I think a lot of the time it's what skills am I good at? I love organizing things and making things really neat and stuff like that. I mean, it should have been, obvious, like looking back now, okay, that's quite obvious why I would do this. I like order. I like things to be sorted. I like thinking about things in a different way. Present me a problem and then let me find a solution. So I think I wish I knew it didn't matter. I think there's a lot of pressure to think, I should know.
Career, so young. Yeah.
I mean, I've got 4 kids, and 2 of them, one's at university now and one's on a year out. But I think it's been really hard, what do I do? Yeah. And and also because I think in education, as in secondary education, they're still not seeing the breadth of jobs there are. They see the traditional jobs and they don't see all of that. And also I think going back to that piece of advice I was given of making sure people know how good if you've done something really well and you've had feedback and praise. Self-promotion. So when after that piece of advice, every time somebody sent me saying, thank you, that was brilliant, I would send it to my line manager and I'd send it to the managing director every time.
That's a good idea.
Look, this is what I've done.
Yes. Self-promote. That's such a good bit of advice as well. And if someone came to you tomorrow saying, I want to do what you do, what would you say to them?
I would say that I think doing project management or some form of project management training is probably a good place to start. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be a degree. I mean, you go and do a Prince 2 course or something like that, or the RICS, construction project management, because project management, you can go into so many different places.
Yeah, it's huge.
And the skills from it are so transferable to so many other things as well.
Yes.
So I would say that would be a good place to start. And then, try and get as much experience. Don't expect to go in and be at the top.
Head
Just
off.
go in and learn. I mean, when I went to Move Plan, I spent the first 7 weeks folding bin bags because we used to give everyone a move pack with a bin bag in.
Yeah.
And at one point I did think, I'm not quite sure where I went to university if I'm folding bin bags. But, I think that is an area, and not that my children will listen to me, but I have said to them, if you're not sure, project management is a good place. It's a good area to go into because you will find something from
that you'll fall into that you enjoy.
And even if you go into anything else, you will do a project at some point in your life.
Yes.
And, ask for work
it's good
experience.
Grounding. It is good grounding.
And also universities are always really good and very, very willing to give people work experience.
That's good.
And it may not be advertised, but if you ask them, all the departments generally will find a way to help you.
Love that. Yeah, no, that's really good to know. Okay, so wrapping up in terms of what you do outside your day job, I didn't realise you had 4 children in all this time that you've been doing your career. So what do you like to do outside your day job to switch off?
To switch off, I love to read. I read all the time.
Wow.
I'm not saying I read anything really particularly highbrow, but I just adore reading. So
that's so good.
Even when I eat my breakfast, I read.
Oh.
I love going to yoga.
Nice.
I started doing Tai Chi, which my husband keeps laughing. I mean, calls it slow karate. From a mental perspective, it's really good. And it's the only class I've ever been in where it's 50% male, 50% female.
Love that.
So I love doing all of that. Love spending time with my children. So I've got 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
And my stepdaughter and partner, I've got 2 little girls. So I've got 2 grandchildren as well. So
that's
spending
lovely.
time with all of them and going down the beach with our dog because we are literally a 10-minute walk.
Oh, how nice. That sounds lovely. I went off there somewhere on the beach. I love being by water. So there's something about it, isn't there?
It is. I think sometimes, and it's helpful, like even from a work perspective or home perspective, if something's a bit stressful, just go and look at the sea.
Yeah.
I think it's so big that you think anything's possible.
I love that. So last one, what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given?
Best bit of advice. I feel like I've covered that a little bit with just promote yourself. But I think that you can do anything. You just have to look for opportunities. And sometimes they won't necessarily be seeming like it's going to lead somewhere, but it could do. So saying yes to a lot of things. But equally, I think more so now I've got later in my career is also saying no. Because I think it's quite powerful to say no, not in a power play way, but just more in the sense of protecting your time for the things that are really matter to you, but be irrelevant to your job. Because otherwise you get pushed into all sorts of things.
Especially projects.
Hang on a minute. There's nothing to do with me.
Yeah. So be mindful of what you're taking on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you get, I find it really hard. I've currently, my diary's massively busy, and then really taking the time. I've been spending this last year taking the time of trying to actually go, do I really need to be in that meeting?
Yes, that. Because sometimes you think you're there and you think, I don't really need to be here.
Yeah.
It's almost like you get sort of pulled along to stuff and you think, actually, I don't really need to be here. So, so saying no sometimes is good.
Yeah, saying no or making sure you really know why you're at a meeting and how relevant it is to your role. Could actually you've sorted it by an email or a phone call rather than having a full meeting about it. Loads of time.
That's it. No, brilliant bit of advice. And not said before, actually. So,
Well, it's interesting. I've been following somebody on LinkedIn called Leadership Heather.
Yeah.
And she's got some brilliant advice in terms of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
In terms of like really thinking about why you're there at a meeting.
That's it. Sometimes you just go along with stuff that's always been that way, and then thinking about things differently. Like you think, actually, that makes so much more sense doing it that way, or thinking differently.
I think and also the other thing I would say is spending a little bit of time on Friday afternoon to plan your week.
I do that.
Yeah.
Make sure I've covered everything that I've missed, maybe.
Yeah.
Or that could have a little bit of time spent on, and then plan for the week so that you can just switch off.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely. So you're not kind of spending your weekend thinking, oh my God, what's happening next?
Yes. I don't think, and you're sort of almost anxious to start the week because then you know you've missed something.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because with having a lot of meetings, you want to go there having at least some preparation of knowing, or at least knowing why you're there, what you might be asked.
Absolutely. Always be prepared. Absolutely, for everything. Yeah, no, that's a great bit of advice. Thank you so much, Helen. I really appreciate you coming down here to speak with us and share your journey. It's been a delight, and good luck with your merge. And I look forward to seeing what you're all doing over there at University of Kent and University of Greenwich, isn't it?
Yes.
Big space.
Big space. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been really great to come along.
Thank you. So people might want to reach out to you and ask you some questions around some of the topics we spoke of today. Is that okay if they come up to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. And then that's it for today's episode of Wear Many Hats. Please do like, share, forward and comment on Helen's post and share with anyone that's looking to get into the industry or looking to step up and get into a position like Helen's in. Until next time, take care.